Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us today.
Glad to be back.
So today we're going somewhere a little different. We're going to be taking a look at a magazine called Kennedy Assassination Chronicles. Have you heard of this one?
I have. Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, it seems to be a publication really dedicated to a community of researchers who are really invested in, some of the alternative theories about the JFK assassination. We're looking at an issue from Spring 2000, Volume 6, Issue 1. And we thought this would be kind of an interesting way to approach this topic. Because instead of, going through a strict timeline of, the assassination and all the events, we're kind of jumping into a web of different individuals who are all connected in some way to the assassination. And we're going to be looking at their stories and the questions they raise. So it's kind of a different way to think about this event, through the lens of personal experiences and individual perspectives. What do you think about that approach?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting way to do it because it kind of humanizes the event. You see these people not just as names in a history book, but as real individuals who had their own thoughts and feelings and motivations.
Exactly.
And I think that can give us a whole new perspective on what happened.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's jump right in. One of the articles that I thought was really interesting is by a guy named Doug Horn. He was a staff member of the Assassination Records Review Board, which was the group that was tasked with, declassifying documents related to the assassination. And his article is basically like a giant "I told you so." It's directed at the ARRB, and he's outlining what he sees as their biggest failures in their investigation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And one of his major points of criticism is the way they handled the Zapruder film, the famous film that captured the assassination. He's basically saying that they didn't do enough to test the authenticity of the film. Yeah, he suggests that they should have run test film through the same camera that Zapruder used under similar conditions to really, see if there was any possibility of tampering.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's a pretty crucial piece of evidence, right?
Absolutely. And he even highlights like a discrepancy between the test film that Kodak used and the actual Zapruder film that's held in the National Archives. So he's really hammering home this point that there were, questions about the authenticity.
Yeah.
That weren't fully addressed.
So he's basically saying, like, there's a chance that the film we all know might not be exactly what it seems.
Right. And, and whether or not you agree with his conclusions.
Yeah.
It does raise some interesting questions about how thoroughly they investigated. Did they prioritize maybe a neat and tidy narrative over really like digging deep and exploring all the possibilities? It makes you wonder, how many other potential leads were maybe dismissed or overlooked.
Yeah. I mean, when you're dealing with something as high profile as this, there's always going to be that pressure to, find answers quickly. And maybe sometimes that means cutting corners or not following every lead.
Right, exactly. And it's not just the Zapruder film. Horn also criticizes the way the ARRB handled the depositions. From the Dallas doctors who treated JFK at Parkland Hospital, he says they missed opportunities to gain some really crucial insights from those doctors. And it just all adds to this feeling that maybe the full story wasn't told.
Yeah, it's like they were so focused on a certain narrative that they weren't really open to exploring other possibilities, even if those possibilities came from, credible sources like the doctors who treated Kennedy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you ready for something even more intriguing?
Hit me with it.
All right, so buckle up because the next article dives into a mystery that is really fascinating. It's about these things called the Oswald Mexico City tapes. Have you heard of these?
I heard whispers.
Okay, yeah, so these were recordings that supposedly captured conversations of someone claiming to be Lee Harvey Oswald before the assassination. And it gets even wilder. These tapes allegedly recorded Oswald talking with a known KGB agent.
Whoa, hold on. So there are tapes out there of the alleged assassin talking to a Soviet agent before the assassination.
That's what these recordings suggest. But here's the catch where. The FBI, under J. Edgar Hoover himself, concluded that the voice on those tapes wasn't actually Oswald's.
Wait, so the FBI is saying the tapes are fake?
Well, they're saying the voice on the tapes doesn't belong to Oswald.
Okay, so someone was trying to make it sound like Oswald was talking to the KGB.
Right, as the author of this article, Rex Bradford, he even found documentation of a phone call between Hoover and President Lyndon Johnson where they discussed this discrepancy.
Oh, wow, so this goes all the way to the top.
But it does. And it just raises so many questions. Why would someone go to the effort of creating these fake recordings to implicate Oswald?
Yeah, who would benefit from that? I mean, was it a deliberate attempt to frame him? And if so, who was behind it?
Exactly. Those are the questions that this article is raising.
Yeah.
And it just adds, yet another layer of complexity to this whole story.
It's like a conspiracy within a conspiracy.
Right. And as if that wasn't enough, Bradford also points out that there's conflicting evidence, suggesting that Oswald did visit the Cuban and Soviet embassies in Mexico City.
So he was there, but maybe not on the tapes.
Right. So was this a deliberate move to try and make the planted tapes seem more credible by connecting them to a real event? It just makes your head spin, right?
It's like trying to put together a puzzle where half the pieces are missing and the other half might be from a different puzzle entirely.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's this kind of stuff that makes the JFK assassination so endlessly fascinating, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's always another layer to peel back.
Okay, well, let's take a little break from the world of spies and conspiracies for a moment. And we'll look at an article that feels almost like a detective story.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
All right, so this one is written by Mark Colgan. And he details his personal quest to uncover the truth about the death of a woman named Janet Jada Conforto.
Janet Jada Conforto.
Right, you might be thinking, who is Jada? Well, she was a stripper who had ties to Jack Ruby, the man who shot Oswald.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is getting interesting.
Yeah, and what I love about this article is Colgan's dedication to uncovering the truth about Jada's life and death. He really goes all in. He dives headfirst into the Warren Commission documents. He makes phone calls. He goes down the rabbit hole of internet sleuthing. He's like a real-life history detective.
That's awesome. I love that.
I know, and the details that he uncovers about Jada's life are just as fascinating as the mystery itself. He finds her real name. It was Janet Mole. He learns about her multiple marriages, her children, the circumstances of her death in a motorcycle accident back in 1980. He even digs up this colorful anecdote about Jada smuggling marijuana into Dallas in cookie tins while wearing nothing but a mink coat and high heels.
Now that's a story.
I know, right? But there's this poignant side to it, too. Jada was buried in an unmarked crypt in New Orleans. It just makes you wonder what her life was really like and what secrets she might have taken to the grave.
Yeah, it's like she was this forgotten figure.
Yeah.
But Colgan brings her back to life through his research. It reminds us that history is made up of individual lives, each with its own complexities and mysteries.
Exactly. We often get caught up in the big picture, but this article really brings us back down to earth. It reminds us that these were real people.
Yeah, it's a good reminder.
All right, so I'm already hooked on this deep dive. It's like we're peeling back the layers of history, one story at a time.
It's definitely proving to be an insightful journey so far.
All right, so are you ready to keep going?
Absolutely. Let's see what else we can uncover.
Okay, great.
There's something else in this magazine that I think is really interesting, too.
Oh, yeah, what's that?
It's a section called Passages, and it's basically a collection of these, brief obituaries for people who were connected in some way to JFK or the assassination. They're like little snippets of lives that were touched by this event.
That's interesting. So who are some of the people featured in this Passages section?
Well, one that caught my eye was Adam Yarmolinsky. He was an advisor to Kennedy. And he was really instrumental in shaping what they called the New Frontier program.
New Frontier. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, it was kind of Kennedy's vision for, a more progressive America. Yarmolinsky helped develop policies related to civil rights, poverty alleviation, arms control, all sorts of things.
So he was like a behind-the-scenes architect of some of Kennedy's most ambitious ideas.
Exactly. He's often overshadowed by the bigger names, but he played a really significant role in the Kennedy administration.
It's amazing how these seemingly minor figures can have such a big impact on history.
Absolutely. And then there's Henry Burroughs. He was an Associated Press photographer who captured some incredible images in the immediate aftermath of the assassination.
Wow, I can't even imagine what that must have been like.
Right. To be there in those moments, witnessing that kind of tragedy firsthand, and having the responsibility to capture it for the world to see.
I bet his photos are really powerful.
They are. They really convey the chaos and raw emotion of that day.
I'd love to see those sometime.
Yeah, definitely
Right.
worth checking out. Then we have Richard Kleindienst. He served as Nixon's attorney general during Watergate.
Okay, so a little bit later in history.
Right. But it shows how these events can be connected in unexpected ways.
It's like history is this giant web.
Exactly. And then there's Willard Hess. His company customized the presidential limousine in which JFK was shot.
Oh, wow. So he actually had a direct connection to the assassination.
He even served as a consultant to the Warren Commission, providing his insights on the car's design and security features.
That must have been a strange experience for him.
I can't even imagine. And finally, there's Clyde Eugene Johnson. He was a Dallas police officer who played a small but significant role after the assassination.
What did he do?
Well, he was tasked with protecting Air Force One at Dallas Love Field after the shooting, and he even escorted the judge who swore in Lyndon B. Johnson onto the plane.
Wow, so he was right there in the middle of it all.
He was.
It's amazing how these seemingly small details can add so much to our understanding of the event.
Yeah, they really helped to paint a more complete picture.
So what do you think all of this means?
Mm.
Why do you think this magazine, and these passages in particular, hold such significance?
I think it speaks to our enduring fascination with the JFK assassination. You know, decades later, we're still searching for answers, still trying to piece together the puzzle.
Yeah, I get that.
And these little glimpses into the lives of those connected to the event, they offer a way for us to connect with history on a more personal level.
It's like we're seeing the human side of this historical tragedy.
Exactly, and I think that's what makes it so compelling.
Makes you wonder, if we had like all the information, like every single detail, would we finally have a definitive answer about, what happened that day in Dallas?
I don't know. It's tempting to think that more information would lead to more clarity. But sometimes I think the more you dig into something like this, the more questions you end up with.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle, but the pieces keep changing shape.
Right. But I do think that the search itself is valuable even if we never find all the answers. It reminds us that history isn't, just a fixed set of facts. It's a living thing that's constantly evolving as we uncover new evidence and new perspectives.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so fascinating, right? It's not just about memorizing dates and names. It's about trying to understand the complexities of the past.
Exactly. Well, this has been a really incredible deep dive. This single issue of Kennedy Assassination Chronicles has been so insightful. It's given us a glimpse into a whole community of researchers who are dedicated to uncovering the truth, whatever that truth may be.
It's been an eye-opening journey for sure.
Yeah, and it's made me realize just how many layers there are to this story and how many unanswered questions still linger, even after all these years.
I think that's what keeps us coming back to it. The JFK assassination, it's this historical puzzle that we may never fully solve.
Right, but it's the act of searching for those missing pieces that keeps us engaged. It challenges us to think critically and to question what we think we know.
Exactly, and to remember that history is made up of real people with real lives and real stories.
Well said. It's been a wild ride, hasn't it?
It certainly has.
And it leaves us with, I think, a lot to think about. What does it say about us, about our relationship with history? That even decades after this event, we're still grappling with its enigma. So on that note, we come to the end of another deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this exploration. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deeper